Twilight Gets a Puppy. By TDR. Chapter 82. Dog Showstoppers. Epilogue. Earlier that day, Princess Celestia, co-ruler of Equestria, goddess of the sun, known by what few enemies she had left around as the solar flare, let out a small sigh and sat back in her throne regarding her day court, ignoring the faint squelch her throne's cushion made as she moved. The throne room was filled with about 2 feet of water, enough to lap lightly against the top stairs of her raised dais. It had a faintly musty and muddy odor as if it was from a pond. She herself was soaked to the bone and had a large fish, that resembled some sort of koi perhaps, impaled upon her horn, still flopping about wildly with its tail slapping the top of her head. A number of her petitioners were still seated on the wooden benches that rested in the court, remaining much as they had been before the message spell arrived. It was as if they expected court to continue shortly. A few bored noble foals had turned one of the benches into a makeshift canoe and were paddling it around the room. A few other petitioners were looking on with interest at the goings-on of the rest of the court. Fancy Pants was standing in the water drenched alongside his wife Fleur-de-Lis, who looked far less amused at having her dress and mane ruined by the water, but given she was splashing Fancy every time he looked away and pretending to remain upset about her mane when he looked at her to throw off suspicion, spoke volumes about her true amusement. Prince Blueblood was standing on the other side of the aisle watching the foals paddle past him with a bit of envy, though he remained stoic in his stance as if expecting this all to be cleared up in a moment or two so the court could continue, though Celestia doubted he would have any issues if she called it short. Some annoying appearances needed to be kept up. The real entertainment came from some of the other petitioners. Curio Duster, from the Canterlot Museum, for instance, was trying his best to remove a particularly insistent group of minnows out of his pants leg and was doing a rather entertaining attempt at a line dance routine while doing so. Jet Set, a random if annoying noble, was currently running around the room screaming and being chased by a pair of guards who were hot on the tail of a ornery snapping turtle who was latched onto the noble stallion's tail. Midnight Star, a reporter for some gossip magazine or another, was currently screaming about, having seen enough Japani theatre to know where this was going, while she was fighting off a particularly large squid which had grappled her and 2 other guards who were trying to save the mare. Diamond Hope, a noble heiress, was currently clinging to one of the pillars in the room trying to keep above the water and the plethora of frogs that had started swimming under her, likely attracted by the multitude of feathery scales in her current dress, which to Celestia looked much like little beetles or butterflies. Princess Celestia let out a small sigh as the main doors were opened finally and the flood of water rushed out into the royal hallways, knocking over the guards who had tried to get in. It also pulled out a number of other ponies and fish, as well as the 3 foals on the bench who let out shouts of joy as their canoe turned into a log flume and raced down the hall on a wave of water, with their parents and some more guards rushing after to try and catch them. Celestia spared a glance over to her assistant Flowery Text, who had somehow managed to avoid getting soaked at all, though she was also hovering a bit off of the ground behind the throne. Flowery. Yes, Princess. Is Luna asleep? Yes, Princess. Have any of the statues in the gardens moved? Not that anyone is aware of, Princess. I see. Schedule some time free for me later in the week. I would like to visit Ponyville, my student specifically. Of course, Princess. Flowery jotted down the note on her clipboard. Should I inform the Treasury that they will be needing an increase in their disaster funding again? Flowery looked over at the small, slightly crooked grin on the princess's face before sighing. That will be a yes then. Author's note. And thus we wrap up another episode. One more until fall is over and the winter episodes begin. Though it is likely to be a short one. End author's note. End chapter 82. Dog Showstoppers. Epilogue.